Welcome to Third Chances, a talk show where we like to hear from people who devoted their life to health, fitness, and wellness. Medical professionals, health coaches, and all the others who help us every day to cure our body, mind, or soul. Those who always look for more natural, holistic ways to help even more people to live a happier and healthier life. Those who don't like to give up easily and settle on you or themselves. It is never too late or too soon. I always believe that every one of us deserves not just a second chance, but as many as we need. I'm Vera, your host. Who better than a master of reinvention with an accent to guide you through it, right? Just like they say, you are not a tree, so move. And God knows I have done just that in my own life many times. If you are not completely happy with the direction your life is going, this show may help you get the courage to change what is needed, find a new path, and take charge. So come on over, pour yourself a glass of wine, and spend some time with us. Let's laugh and cry together and get inspired by people just like you and me who overcame their own doubts and took a leap of faith to reinvent their life on their own terms. I hope and pray that we help you on that journey. And if you feel so compelled and inspired, please let us know. Don't be shy. Who knows? You may just be our next featured guest with another inspiring success story. So here we go. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Third Chances. This time I have the pleasure to speak with Gary White, and he is someone who has doctorate in public policy and administration. He was paramedic for many years and fulfilled his wife's dream to be married to Johnny Gage from TV series Emergency that I never saw, but that's funny. He also told me that he loved racquetball and golf, and he's an author. He had a book on Amazon called Becoming a Highly Defined Leader and has multiple programs that he does for organizations that we will talk about later. But first of all, welcome, Gary, to my show.
Thank you, Vera. Thank you for having me. It's just my pleasure to get to be on with you today.
Where are you calling from?
So right today, I'm in Panama City Beach, Florida today.
Oh, so we are in one state, just very far away from each other.
Yeah.
I am in southern part of Florida. Yeah, I had a pleasure to be introduced to you via our common friend, Thomas Hill.
Yeah.
And he told me that I need to talk to you, and he told me that you are a wonderful human being that resonate on the same levels with us, and we did resonate with Tom a lot. We are actually in the same space together, but you do something a little different. Yet this podcast is about stories, and I would love to kind of showcase your story of reinvention, because I'm assuming this is not your first rodeo. Usually you move into coaching in business when you build on your own experiences. So I would like to go back first and learn a little bit about what Gary White as a young man was dreaming about and planning to do with his life.
Well, Vera, that's when people have asked me to talk to them about my life and my story, I'm like, well, how much time do you have? Because
we have
I've
some
done,
time.
I've done a lot of things.
You don't have to go from the birth.
Don't start that early. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you, Vera, again for having me on. And
Absolutely.
as I came up through, I didn't have a whole lot of aspirations, to be quite honest, when I was in high school. I can remember being in class and the teacher asked everyone, what they thought they would like to do, and my answer was very simple. I said I'd like to just work a steady job and have a great family, and so there was some simplicities of life that I had a great appreciation for as my parents raised me up. My mom a stay-at-home mom, and my dad, he installed carpet for a living.
Yeah.
And had an 8th grade education, and but worked hard, smart in that regard. We When I was 8 years old, we moved to a farm, and so I got to experience getting up early in the morning and before school, which I did not enjoy. But I got to
Did not
experience.
enjoy school or getting
I
up
did
early?
not enjoy getting up
Right.
early
Yeah.
before school
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
go feed the cows.
Where was that? That was in Florida? No, it
No,
was.
that was actually in Tennessee. So
Okay. Okay.
probably some people watching will have noticed that I've got a bit of an accent.
Yeah.
I usually tell people I'm from Jersey, and some of them laugh, and some of them look at me kind of funny. I say, I'm from Southern Jersey,
Right. Yeah.
But no, we would, yeah, I'd get up early and go feed the cows and
Mm,
the calves. When we had the calves, you had to bottle feed them for a
mhm,
while.
mhm.
And no, I didn't enjoy that a whole lot, simply because I enjoyed my sleep. But
Yeah.
looking back on it, there's so much that I learned. Vera, one story that I talk a lot about was when we lived on the farm. My dad, he wanted to plant some corn, so
Mhm.
we leased a neighbor's fields, and so we had 10 acres there that we could plant some corn. And I was a little chunky as a little boy, and as a young and the plow, we had a problem with the tractor, where the lift on the back of the tractor, it wouldn't go on down and really let that plow sink into the ground. So Dad would have me sit on the plow and provide some extra weight.
Pushing it down. Yeah.
Yeah, but I share how that whenever we would plant the corn, as I look back over this, and I've drawn some lessons from that to bring to help people today, is that I was in charge of putting the right corn seed in the planter. So the tractor would pull the planter behind it. And one field we wanted to have silver queen corn, and the other field we wanted to have peaches and cream. And I had to be sure that I put the right seed in that planter.
Yeah.
And just looking back over that memory, I realized one day, I said, our subconscious mind is a lot like that planter.
Mhm.
It doesn't know the difference between one thought and the other. It's just a thought generator, just like that planter is just dispersing the seeds.
Absolutely.
It's just
Yeah.
sowing seeds.
Whatever you feed it. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
That's,
And I recognize the power of affirmations. I think probably as I reflected on that childhood memory more than anything, the power of affirmations, that self-talk. Your subconscious doesn't know right from wrong. It just keeps spitting out what it's been loaded with. And what a powerful lesson, Vera, for us all to glean from that
but I
on
also
how.
think that it
Yeah.
was a good lesson in responsibility and dignity of
Oh,
work,
sure.
and
Oh,
some work ethic and
yeah.
discipline. I mean, our parents were very smart. We didn't like it
Yeah.
much when we were disciplined as a young kids, but they instilled some values in us that
Oh,
wouldn't
yeah.
come otherwise.
That's
So I
true.
think, yeah, that's why I feel important to know where you came from, because
Yeah.
that forms you as a man. And anytime I'm looking into someone's life and consider them as a business partner or networking partner or
Mhm.
anybody that I would like to maybe work with, I want to know a little more than just the bio, than just the professional achievements or whatever they do today. Because
Yeah.
usually when we go back to that journey, it shows what kind of person you are. And that's
Yeah.
exactly where I was getting that. And so
Yeah.
you, what I remember from your very brief bio was actually my compliments, because usually when I ask somebody to send me bio of maximum 50 words, it's usually 2 pages. So that was really good. But it didn't give me a lot of insights into your life, really.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming when you were looking for like decent job and family life, how did that work out for you?
Yeah. So I started, I told you in high school I didn't have a whole lot of aspirations,
Mhm.
but I did have to go to work, right? So,
Yeah.
uh, but I enjoyed swimming. I was very involved in swimming, biking, and running. Did a lot of the triathlon competitions, and so out of high school, I decided, hey, I'm gonna be a lifeguard. And so I went to the local YMCA and took the class, and then got a job at the YMCA as a lifeguard, and worked in their summer camps
Yeah.
and all of those things.
Sounds
I
like a
did,
cool job to me. Yeah.
yeah. It was a good job. There was one person I saved. She had a convulsion in the pool,
Wow.
and I knew that she had that. I knew that she had that condition, and we would talk several times. She would come and swim laps, and we would talk, and so I was just paying attention to her, and she just looked different. She acted different. She was moving different in the water, and I thought, what's up with her?
Yeah.
And she was just slowly swimming towards the edge of the pool, like she knew something's fixing to happen.
Yeah.
But I could tell that something was fixing to happen. So
Mm.
literally, about the time that she started to go into the convulsion, she had made it to the side of the pool, and I just reached in, grabbed her by her wrist, and pulled her out of the pool.
Thank God.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so had the one save, of course. You hope you never have to,
Yeah.
ever, but glad to be a part of helping somebody breathe that next breath and
Oh, for sure.
be able to go home at the end of the day. But I, my mother was a nurse, and that had some influence on me. Uh, after I got out of high school, she went to nursing school. So late in life, she went back to school, got her nursing degree, and that inspired me. And I said, I think I'd like to be a paramedic. And so that's the direction that I went. Right after uh, working for the YMCA, I began working for the local hospital as a nursing attendant, and went to EMT school and paramedic school during that time, and then got employed with the local emergency services, where I worked for 15 years for them, and had a great career there.
What
And
did you like the most about that?
yeah, what I liked the most was being able to make the big difference when the big difference needed to be made. There were some times that beyond a shadow of a doubt, we were the difference maker in someone living or not. Now, ultimately, if it's a bad trauma, you got to get them to surgery, but you got to keep them alive
Yeah.
to get them to surgery, right? And so had some of those that I know that we were the ones that made the difference, and some childbirths. Those were always a delight to be a part of as well. And then, of course, there were plenty of things about that job plenty of things that were bad that you wish you had never seen, and
Of course.
you wish you had never been a part of. But one thing it definitely did was give me such a greater appreciation for life, and a greater appreciation for people, right? And probably an empathy beyond what I already naturally had, just an increase in empathy.
It
You
just
know,
came to me. Was it locally in your community? Did you know the people sometimes that you were attending to? Is it
yes,
possible?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sometimes, yeah. As a matter of fact, prior to becoming a lifeguard, we had to get certified in CPR. So the local Red Cross taught the CPR class, and so years later, the woman that taught me CPR, I would actually do CPR on her.
Yeah. Wow. Isn't it funny?
Yeah, yeah, several years later.
I was just
Uh,
wondering because that comes with the territory when you are in your
yeah.
community and doing something like that, you inevitably run into somebody you may know. And
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if it make it harder or easier in
Yeah.
that situation.
Yeah. Sometimes pretty tough. Um, and I had a lot of children that I took care of over the years. There was one, Jessica was her name, and Jessica's the one that I never forgot in a different way. I don't know how to explain it, but she was dying, And we got the call, you know, it was, I don't know, probably about 15 minutes till midnight. And we got the call that a 10-year-old has woke her mom up and says that she can't breathe. And I had just a sick feeling about it when we went out the door. I thought, hmm. And
How
anyway,
old was she? Do you
she
know?
was 10. And you know, every intervention that we would make, and she would, you know, she'd be scared and might cry. And she was in shock. You could tell she was in very deep shock, which is very bad for a child. When they start showing signs of shock, you're way behind the 8 ball at that point.
And I
So
think
I
with when the breath is involved, you also start
yeah,
panicking a little
yeah,
bit, which
yeah,
doesn't help either, right?
correct. Yeah. So every intervention I would make, she would you know, she would kind of panic a little bit, and I would say, Jessica, trust me.
Mhm.
And anyway, Jessica didn't make it. And as a matter of fact, I had said, Jessica, trust me, right before she took her last breath, and we couldn't get her back. She was a very sick young lady. But it was probably about 4 years after that, Vera, that before I really decompressed from that. It's still hard to talk about,
Oh,
but
of course it is. Yeah.
uh,
Especially when it involves child.
yeah.
That's much harder. Yeah. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
it was about 4 years later. I actually had to pull over the side of the road and just let it go.
Yeah. Was it
Yeah,
somebody you know?
no.
Family? No.
But got to know her family through that, and have been fairly close with her family since that time.
Mm.
But
I know this could be very, very personal. And my
mm,
father was a fireman, and
mm,
it was a little different field, but very much. It's not like in America where firemen go automatically with any health emergency. That they were really going to fires, but it would scare you to pieces too when you hear
oh yeah,
stories that happen. And
oh yeah,
definitely, that's a big part of very
yeah,
responsible job for somebody who didn't know what to do with his life.
yeah, yeah. Isn't that funny?
Yeah,
Isn't that true?
yeah. So, but then you were looking for, I don't know when you end up working for the government, but you had some aspirations to move on from that eventually.
Yeah. So I knew there was more for me, and my dad, you know, he installed carpet, and he was in flooring, and a little along through life, I'd learned some of his craft. Well, I decided to do that, and so I came off the ambulance. And now, even though I came off the ambulance, I maintained my paramedic license, and I got involved in disaster medicine. So that was intermittent work.
Mhm.
That's something for the federal government, and they would call you up, okay, for a big event.
I'm not
So
even
like,
sure what that is. Can you tell me a little bit
yeah,
about
absolutely. So um, the National Disaster Medical System,
it? Oh, okay.
NDMS,
Hmm.
is underneath the Department of Health and Human Services.
Okay.
And NDMS is made up of health professionals from all over, and they have disaster medical assistance teams in each state. And so I was part of the Tennessee Disaster Medical Assistance Team, and I was deployed to Hurricane Katrina, uh, several more: Rita, Ophelia, Wilma.
Got it.
I was at Superstorm Sandy. I was in the Haiti earthquake,
Hmm.
and then also got involved in the training division and helped write some of the curriculum and manage the training program for these disaster responders. And that was in uh, Anniston, Alabama, at the Center for Domestic Preparedness. So
Hmm.
I had probably 18 months worth of that, but all of that while being full-time in flooring and growing that business and having some crews working that even allowed me to, whenever the disasters would hit or the training would happen, I could go do that. And that business continued to operate. And
Yeah. So that was kind of like standby position. If
yeah,
something happened, you've been deployed. Okay.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, clearly it still fed that part of me that wanted to be part of something significant, right?
Yeah.
And Vera, that's something that all of us, I recognize we all really want. We all, there's an upward draw in all of our lives. Now, I think we could also say there's a downward pull. There's always something that we're pushing against, right? And if we're going to answer that upward call, we got to get up. We got to push against something.
We got to overcome some fears and discomfort.
Yes, exactly. And so, one of the things that I've learned is, you hear some people, Vera, say that, I just want to find my purpose in life, and I've gotten some real clarity on purpose. And so I'll just share this briefly. And I'm not going to dive off into purpose. I want to say simply that purpose is something that is served. And I can serve a lot of purpose. Okay. My giftedness is where I serve it best, in the area where I'm really good and I can really add value to people. But when people are saying, I want to find my purpose, what they're really saying is, I really crave significance in my life. That's what they're really saying.
Or impact,
Yes.
You get to a point in life. And I would like to ask that, because when you don't get this one day, you grew into it. And was there a moment when you realized that no matter how impactful your job actually was, saving lives and building business and everything, you felt like there was something missing?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yes. Yes, I knew there was. And while I was finding some fulfillment along the way, by inspiring others, that's one of my gifts, and providing clarity, that's another one of my gifts. And I would get fulfillment in that along the way. I knew there's an exit ramp somewhere. This is not fully where I'm supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And but I operated in that space, 15 years on the ambulance, and it made me part of who I am. And another 13 years doing disaster medicine and flooring, and it made me part of who I am.
Did family fit anywhere there?
Oh, yeah.
That mix?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a part of fulfillment for many people.
Yes, it is. It is, Vera. And I can tell you that I married the sweetest little Southern belle, is what I call her. And Kim is my wife, and we have 2 boys.
Okay.
And so we were married in 1990, and she was a school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there was, family's huge for me, and my devotion to my family is huge. And and with that being said, that is a continual balancing act.
Yes.
Because, there's that, I've just shared all those aspirations that I had. And first I didn't know what I wanted, and then have these aspirations. But then when you get into flooring and you're self-employed, you got to go after it.
Yeah.
You got to get gritty. You got to dig in, and it doesn't matter what's going on. The 2008, that crash,
mm-hmm.
You still got to go get it. You got to get out there and go after it.
Yeah.
And there were some long hours,
I just realized one thing when you said, first I didn't know what I was going after, but I think this is actually a great start, because when some people just get their eyes set on something and they follow that one path, and it may prove years later that it wasn't meant for them. But when you are open book at the beginning, when you just open to anything that comes your way and you are willing to try, it leads you on a path that you may never even considered before. And I think that's a part of the charm of life, when you leave yourself open. But then when you get direction, you absolutely want to make the best out of it. But it's not like you close your door to everything else. Because when I'm listening to you, it made a lot of sense, your path, from lifeguard to the emergency, people, to the disasters. it was very same team, and somewhere they'll feel the good hard job that your father showed you how to. And building the business, it's extremely skillful thing to do, and it's brave as well to start business. So the responsibilities and everything else, it is fascinating, because you meet people that only did one thing in their life, and they excel in it, or they get to point that they can't stand it anymore because it's just. And you and I are very much the same, that we touched on different things. They were somewhat connected, but not always. And it gives you that large pool of experience that you can then utilize in something like coaching when you, and that would be my questions. Where did you get the idea? Because my personal development came much later in life. I was go-getter. I was just following, responding to things. I didn't think about my own personal growth for years. I didn't even know something like that existed. So when that knowledge came to you, that you felt like you need to fulfill something that you don't even know exactly what, but you felt that there is more.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew there was more there. And by the way, thank you for categorizing and painting such a beautiful picture of my life, because I say that because there have been plenty of times that I've wondered, am I even on the right track here? Because I keep switching tracks through life, you know?
Yeah. You know why I felt that way? Because I felt the same way myself. I feel like I'm all over the place. I have done so many different things. It seems like I thought it was my weakness. I thought it was, I can't stay with one thing. And then I learned to realize and look at it like every single experience gave me complete different set of tools and experiences that I can bring to table to help somebody that may not even be involved in that industry, but it makes sense because you were exposed to so many different things. So I think it's important. I kind of like it. I resonate very much with it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I can see some things as you're saying that and describing it in that way. There were many times in flooring that you're changing out an old floor. And there were some times that you had to take it apart in layers, and they had several different layers of flooring, and you had to get all the way down to the base layer before you could really create uh, a really suitable finished product. And so it is in our lives. So it is in our lives. Sometimes we've got layer upon layer upon layer, and we got to peel back those layers.
Yep.
We got to get down to the original structure. And maybe we got to fortify that structure a little bit before we can start rebuilding. You know what I'm saying? Life experiences puts a layer of this on, and a layer of this on,
And
a layer of this on.
expectations and all that.
Yes,
Yep.
yes, exactly. Yeah. So,
Yep.
man, I love talking to you, Vera. We could talk all day.
Well, Tom was right. We are very much made from the same cloth. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
But no,
it is really fascinating for me. That's why I actually started this podcast, to feature people and what makes them tick. Everybody has completely different background and what they came from. Yet some people will make it and some people will be kind of average and disappointed with themselves till the day they die. And they never had aspirations to become something better. And at certain point, I got fascinated by the premise that I'm meant to do something bigger than what I'm doing. I'm meant to be more impactful. I'm meant to affect other people's lives. I'm meant to, like, much is expected of me. And I don't know why it came to us. And I was asking you when it happened to you, because in the middle of family and busy business and then being on call for possible disaster, it's a busy life. And usually people don't have much time to think about these higher principles. So what happened that made you think about these things?
Well, thanks for asking that. So when I was part of the disaster medical field, now I knew before then there's something more, and I don't know what it is or where it is, but there's something higher and more impactful that's drawing me. But a mentor of mine, he introduced me to John Maxwell, and he introduced me to his books, and he began mentoring me, and I began to see things, and as you know, I'm in this new environment, if you will, this environment of just a higher level of thinking, a deeper level of thinking, and I was really enjoying that growth that I was experiencing, and so there was that piece that began to inspire me.
Yes.
That there is more. Now, you know, in the 7 levels of awareness, there's that aspiration level, right? Where you know that there's more. And that next level above aspiration is individual. And that's when you know, you not only know that there's more, but it's available to you.
Yeah.
And then there's that discipline level. Now you're going to do something about it. So Vera, that's when you said, I just knew there was more for me. You decided to do something about it.
Yeah.
I do believe that everyone has those aspirations. Everyone has them. We all started as a child. How many of us as a child, when we hear the stories, we don't see ourselves as being, how many of us don't see ourselves as being the hero in the story?
When you are a child, you can be anything you want.
Yes, yes. So those aspirations exist, and somewhere along the way, there are some beliefs that get instilled in us. There's some ideas that get instilled in us.
Yeah.
That,
get real, get the job,
come on, keep telling it, Vera. You've heard it. You know what I'm talking about. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen to me.
Right. Yeah.
You know, the early bird gets the worm, and the worm's already gone, right? I mean, all these things.
You know, and one thing that got my mind when I'm listening to you, because obviously we follow the very similar teachings. It's we are told things by our parents, by ancestors, by neighbors, by people that shape us early in life, that has never lived the life that we aspire to live.
Yeah.
Like I was looking back, it just, I don't know why it came to me when you were talking about this. I lost my mom about 3 years ago. And I realized when I was writing her obituary, she has never experienced many things that I take for granted. She has, in her entire 84 years of life, she has never been outside of her country. She never had a passport. She never saw an ocean. She never drove car, but she was the worst backseat driver, telling everybody how to. She never even ride a bicycle. She had a huge different life than I did. I went to live in a capital city and left our little village. And then I lived in a foreigner country for over 20 years. And I spoke several languages. She never spoke any of it. Yet we take that shaping and teaching and the logic of those people to shape our future. And eventually you get to a point when you realize, but I am not the same person. This is not my life. They really, your mind is shaped by just the exposure that you have as a child. You cannot imagine bigger when you were never exposed to it. That's why I believe the multiple professional experience is actually very much enriching your life experience, because you can relate to many different things from different industries. So sorry to interrupt. It just came to my mind because it makes a lot of sense with what you're saying, that we let people shape our mind that had nothing to do with our today reality.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And Vera, we all have definitions, and I want to talk about that word for just a minute. the word definition comes from the Latin definitus, which means limits.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
We all have a frame of reference, right? That we see everything through. We see opportunity through that frame of reference. And there's something called the law of relativity that you can only define relative to what you're aware of.
Exactly.
So I have definitions of opportunity. I have definitions of opulence. I have definitions of what having too much is, or having too little, right? I mean, honestly.
Yeah. And what happened to that frame when someone like that, like you, starts talking with person and opens his mind? How is that happening?
Yeah. So I love to share that we have our standard definitions. So I started my company and I called it High Definition Coaching, and now I've rebranded now to Gary White Coaching, but I still have the high definition. I'll use that as a program. But the reason I even went with that idea of high definition, because we have standard definitions.
Yeah.
And high definition, I've got to get outside that. I've got to go beyond the limits of my own thinking. Limits, we talk about limiting beliefs, limited thinking. It's limited because we're only aware of this.
That's right. Based on our experiences. Yeah. Because we ran everything through that same mill of the experience. Yeah.
And the truth is, there is more, and it is available.
And you know what I love about that high definition too? Because it makes things so much clearer.
Yes.
The high definition is a much clearer picture.
It does. That's right. Higher resolution.
Yeah.
So I was looking in a math book one day when I was working on my doctorate. And there's this equation on the page. And when I start reading this, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I can't. This isn't a math book. And everyone in the world needs to hear this lesson. And so it was the rational function of x. That was the equation. And it's very simple. It's 1 over x. 1 over x. Well, when you look at that, you can ask the question, but we all understand the answer. Who chooses the value of x? Well, you will. You'll choose the value. Well, the mathematician said, we have to call the answer something. What do we call the answer? Now, all this is in the math book. And so they said, well, we must consider infinity. Now, we cannot attain into infinity, but we can approach it. So we must consider that there's always a higher value. We must consider there's always a new level that we could rise to, because when you can graph 1 over x, give it a value, it'll graph. There's always a new level that we can go to. They said, so if you define, get this, limits, if you define x and you give it a value, you've essentially stopped going to the next level. So they said, therein is your limitation. The answer is called the limit. 1 over x equals the limit. Now, here's where it gets fun. If you plug in some numbers into x, you plug in 2 and 4 and 10. We'll just pick three numbers. 1 over 2, we know that's 1/2. And we know that that equals 0.5. And so therefore, if the value is 2, if x equals 2, then the limit is 0.5. So you say, well, now let's double the value and let's go to 4. Well, 1 over 4 is 1/4. We know that that is 0.25. And then we say, well, let's go 2.5 times that value. Let's increase the value. Let's go to 10. So 1 over 10 is 1/10, and we know that that equals 0.1. When you begin to look at that, all of a sudden you're like, oh my goodness. When you raise the value, the limit goes down. I'm like, oh boy, what a lesson.
That's a light bulb moment.
That's a light bulb. If I will increase my value by reaching out to Vera and saying, Vera, I have an idea. I'd like to get your thoughts on it. Now I've just expanded the value because Vera saw one thing, just like Vera earlier, you heard a bit of my story and you said, well, actually, you've got all this value because you've got all these experiences.
I started connecting the dots. Yeah.
You just
Differently than
increased,
you would. Yeah.
you just increased the value. And you know what that did? Well, that decreased the limits of my thinking because I had stopped right here. Well, you just took me to here. Why? Because you increased the value. I can't say enough about that, but it is true.
Yeah.
That if we will increase our value, and listen, Vera, you hire me today. If you hire me to work for you, I will choose the value that I bring every day that I come into work. I will choose how valuable am I going to make myself to Vera today. Well, I promise you, if I increase my value, you're going to see that in me. And you're going to say, hey, you know what? Gary, I think qualified. I think he could be a good leader in my organization. And I think there's room for him instead of here. I think there's room for him up here. And well, what just happened? My limitations just went down because I increased my value.
Yeah.
And we can go example over example over example.
Well,
but
you touched on this of what you do today, and it would be probably a good moment to kind of explain what exactly do you do and can do for somebody who is listening to this podcast, trying to figure out what this has to do with health and wellness and fitness and what I'm usually talking about. But I have people that because I believe being able to be of service and being in a business or build a business and be successful is all part of personal growth. And that's very much my theme of the podcast. And many of us are in a business and may be looking for a coach or help or, service that they may not even know it may be available to them. So why don't you tell us what exactly can you bring to the table if somebody considers looking at hiring you?
Yeah, great question. A wise man once wrote that good news, when it comes from afar, it does the heart good. And there's a piece of health that comes whenever that you've been working for, that you've been laboring for, when it finally begins to come to fruition. Mm-hmm. It's like good news that's come from a long way off. You've been waiting a long time. You've had a lot of hours involved in this, and you've been working really, really hard for things to begin to come to fruition. So organizational health is absolutely essential to our overall well-being. Now, organizational health, that's really defined as those things that the leaders do each and every day to bring about health in the organization. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I can help people on the inside. So through my life, I've been helping people, and I'm still helping people become the best version of themselves. And I found that if you're really going to have organizational health, Vera, you've got to understand that your business is made up of two parts. You have your business operating system, and you have your human operating system. And both of those must be they must get your equal attention. And in order for you to really nurture both sides of those and not have a lopsided business, I believe if we were to ask today, if we got 1,000 people watching this podcast, how many by show of hands, feel like your business is a little lopsided? And you just can't seem to get. I think we'd have 1,000 hands go up. If you're going to nurture that, you've got to be effective in three areas. You've got to be an effective leader, an effective communicator, and an effective producer. Mm-hmm. And there is a proven way to help you do that. And that is by focusing on the 5 composites of emotional intelligence. And through focusing on those 5 composites, self-perception, how you see yourself, self-expression, that's going to feed into how you identify with others, takes you to the next one, interpersonal. And then that takes you into decision-making and stress management. If you'll focus on those 5, using a 4-step model that I like to use, which is discover, develop, deploy, disciple. If you'll focus on the 5, using the 4-step model, it'll help you be effective in the 3 areas you need to be effective to nourish the 2 parts of your business to get the one thing that you really want.
You're doing a lot in numbers.
Organizational health. It's a lot of numbers.
Sorry, I took your
it's really that simple.
Point. No, you please bring that top point that I interrupted you with.
Yeah, no. It's really that simple. And listen, you can ask yourself 2 questions. For your business, you could say, what do we want to be known for? And you get to answer that one. And that's your vision and that's your mission. And what do we want to be known for? Here's the second question. What are we known for? And your people and your customers will tell you that.
Yeah. The
gap that exists between the 2, that's the opportunity for growth. When you begin bridging that gap, organizational health is what will bridge that gap to where what you want to be known for is what you are known for. And Vera, what I love about this is not only will it bring you clarity on the direction, and that clarity goes through the entire organization. That's one of the fundamental things in organizational health. Not only will it bring clarity, but it will maximize performance, which McKinsey just came out with research in February that said organizational health is still the #1 predictor of performance. So it'll bring you clarity that'll go through the entire organization. It'll peak the performance, and then it will help you recover and regain lost ground. Because again, if I were to ask how many out there by raise of hand, you've lost some ground. Somewhere you've lost some ground, and boy, it'll help you regain that lost ground. I am totally passionate about helping people do that. Because Vera, listen, it's when you get better as a person, your business gets better, the people are happier, the customers are happier. But guess what? You and your life, you're happier.
Your family is happier.
Absolutely. You're more fulfilled.
Everything everything is affected. Yes. Everything.
That's
that
why
makes a lot of sense with your niche, the health. As a former paramedic, when you take a first peek at it, you feel like, oh, he's taking care of health care of the employees. No. This is, but it makes so much sense because when you have cracks in the foundation, that house is not gonna stand for long.
That's right.
It's gonna start, like you said, falling on one side or the other. Or God forbid, you need to double your production, and now it's really exposing all the cracks. Yeah. So unless that whole system is healthy and it starts from the top,
it does.
Then it goes down to every division, or however big your organization may be, or small business, and it affects absolutely everything. That's like putting a flashlight on things. And that's what I love about coaching, is that when you started with that little frame that we view our perspective from, that frame goes away, because suddenly you have somebody with no emotional involvement and not drilled in daily operations, because sometimes we really have a hard time to think, not to mention strategize. We have to tend to different problems that happen during the day. So when you have somebody like Gary coming in, who has the vision and who has the experience to see where the blind spots may be for you, that's invaluable.
Yeah.
And if you have time to work on that with him and expand on where the disbalance is for you and the health comes, it's the sky is the limit.
Oh my goodness. It's that breath of fresh air that you've been looking for, you know?
It makes so much sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. You know, I share quite often from my paramedical experience. I like to share with companies, the leaders are the heartbeat, pumping the blood of life through the organization.
Absolutely.
And there's so many principles to be learned here. I was talking with middle management, and I was sharing with them. I had just taught the lesson to the whole group about the heartbeat, about the leadership. And then I got to talking with middle management in particular. I said, you're the arteries. You're the major arteries that are taking what leadership is pumping, and you're delivering it to the people. And I asked them, I said, this specific company, I said, so talk to me about your connection with your people. What does your day-to-day connection with your people look like? And they looked at one another, and they looked at me and said, what do you mean? Well, that answered my question. I knew then. I said, okay, so you're probably not as connected as you need to be. I said, well, we're just kind of not connected.
Yeah.
And I said, well, imagine you just severed an artery. I said, now, if you sever my artery right now, you sever this artery. In 3 seconds, I'm still standing in front of you and I'm still looking at you. I said, but what do you know? They said, it's just a matter of time. I said, exactly. And I said, if you are not connected to your people, and that life's blood, if you will, pumping that life into the organization, if that is not happening, it's just a matter of time. And Vera, statistics already tell us. Bureau of National Affairs and Gallup and the Carnegie Institute went together, did some research. It already tells us 71% of employees are disengaged.
Yeah.
The productivity loss is 33% of their salary. Okay, so that means if you've got someone making $36,000 a year, the productivity loss because they're disengaged is 12 grand per person. 12 grand that you're losing in productivity.
Bleeding.
When they surveyed them why they are disengaged, it's because they didn't feel valued. They don't feel like they're part of the big picture, and there was no connection between them and leadership. I'm going, it's severed artery. That's what it is. And so organizational health is huge. It's huge.
One connection again made, I don't know why my brain works like this lately. The awareness of the problem. And it goes all the way back to your lifeguard story, when you were aware that that girl has certain medical issues. Therefore, you were focused more on her, and you noticed that she was out of ordinary at that moment because you were aware of the problem. You jumped in and pulled her out.
Yeah.
If you are running a business and you are not aware where your weak points are or where the danger is that something may go wrong, and because you don't know, you're not even aware of the situation, it is going to happen. And it may bring the business down. That sometimes one weak link can do so much damage, because as we all know, you spend a lifetime building reputation and you can lose it in 5 minutes because of one employee. I mean, if you don't believe me, go online and read any reviews on any business you choose from. It's one disappointed customer or one employee can do a lot of damage to reputation that you spend a lifetime building. And it's really shame. It's, you know, we kind of underestimate this because I think everybody's super busy and everybody kind of tend to business as it comes, and surveys and doing stuff, and there's tons of things that needs to be taken care of on a daily basis. But to get the view of the bigger picture that you bring, that you start looking at things, what works and what doesn't, it's seriously something to consider for not only for growth, but for the health of your organization. That's absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, and there's 9 key areas in a business that objectively you got to be paying attention to, and one of those, I'm just going to bring up one, is performance metrics. Now, here's where I'm coming from there, and I can take you to the 17 laws of teamwork, the law of the scoreboard. You know, if you're not measuring it, you don't even know how you're doing.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. You know, high blood pressure is called the silent killer. Well, if you're never getting your blood pressure taken, you don't even know. Right. In the same way, I've been inside some organizations and heard the leaders say this. Heard one leader, he said, I just wish this person that I've hired, he's talking about this person, you know, they're just not getting it. They're just not, and boy, I was just really hoping that they would catch on, you know, and so I just asked, I said, well, I know you have a job description, but have you got something in writing on expectations? And in other words,
a manual,
basic competencies. We need you here in 30 days, and graduated competencies. We need you here in 90 days, and benchmark competencies at 180 days. We need you here. And do you have an improvement plan in between those? And he was doing this. He's looking at eyes big. No.
Yeah.
I said, well, have you had them in your mind maybe, and you've sat down and talked with this employee and laid these things? Does everybody know what those
what is expected of them, actually? Yeah.
Right. So, and all that really means is, yeah, that means there was some communication issues. Yes, that means there's some structure issues. You know what else it means? They're not measuring. They're not measuring. So there was a car dealership that I've been coaching for many years. When I took them through that exercise on just measuring, you know, because honestly, right, there's a number attached to how many times you're breathing per minute, what your blood sugar is, there's a number attached to that. So there's a measurement, and in organizational health, you got to have the same thing. So they now know that the person changing the oil on the lube rack, they need to do 9 oil changes a day. They now know that.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah. It goes as simple as that, because how do you expect somebody to grow into your expectations that are inside your head? They don't even know what goals they are meeting for you if you don't articulate it or put it somewhere in writing. And how do you help them to achieve those goals? What is in place for them to understand the steps that will get them there? It's oh my gosh, that's absolutely.
And you got the communication piece that has to take place, right? So I was in another organization, and one high up manager was talking to me about another manager and some problems that he saw in that department. And I just asked, I said, well, have you had a conversation with this manager? Like, can't talk to him. Like, you can't get anywhere with him. And I paused and I waited and I waited. He never said anything else. I said, well, you can't not talk to them.
Yeah.
I said, you have to talk to them. And so if you don't, okay, so now imagine the nervous system. Vera, if my spinal cord is severed, right, maybe at the level of the waist, then my legs aren't going to move. As much as I want them to move, that connection's been cut off. They're not.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm not going to someone, it's almost like I've severed that connection.
Yeah.
If I'm not going to go have the conversation. You think about it, there's so many analogies to how our bodies operate.
Yes.
And how things operate in a healthy fashion. When we're healthy, we're at our best, we're optimized. Same way in an organization. And it's just those simple principles. But it works. And like I said, there's nine key areas that you've got to be paying attention to. That's kind of like your dashboard. You got to be paying attention to it. And anyway, I love to get into the
Fascinating.
weeds, and
Fascinating.
help them
What
grow.
what size of businesses are your typical client?
Yeah, great question. So I've got a heart for people. So I've worked inside of businesses where it's 2 and 3. I literally had a session with a gentleman. He's a one-man show.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a great product, but right now he's a one-man show, and so I consulted with him. And then I do work for Cisco, the as large as Cisco right now. That's probably my largest client, the technology company.
Mm-hmm.
And so we provide leadership development and coaching for their leaders. And we watch their emotional intelligence needle move in a positive direction. And because we can measure that, right? Again, you got to measure it. And so it's just any size. Whenever I'm asked a lot of times, hey, what's your avatar? And I tell them people.
Yeah.
If there's anywhere that there's people and they want to get better and they're serious about it, then I'll be serious about taking good care of them.
Yeah, I think that's the most important part, because we talk about ideal customers, and of
Mm-hmm.
course some may be more ideal than others in
Yeah.
the way you specialize on the health of organizations. But basically, if it involves blood pumping, then you are their man,
Yeah.
as the former EMT.
Yeah.
It's like CPR for the business.
Yeah, it is. As a matter of fact, clarity, performance, and regain lost ground. That's CPR.
Yeah. Yeah.
Clarity, performance, regain lost ground.
Wow, Gary, that's what not I did not expect this kind of conversation today, but I absolutely enjoy it, because I have been in business on both sides, as an employee and as a business owner. And I can appreciate what you're talking about. Plus, the coaching principles, when we start expanding our own mindset and we start looking at things a little differently, because somebody else, like Jerry, would have the experience to kind of show us the mirror into space that we may not see because of the daily operations. It is really invaluable help. And that's why athletes that want to succeed and excel have coaches.
Yeah.
Or you
Absolutely.
can be athlete that doesn't need any coach, and you can do whatever your best is and enjoy yourself. There's nobody in the world that needs coach unless they want to excel in what they do. And if they don't have a coach, then they are in huge handicap, because this kind of perspective that somebody like Gary can give you is incomparable. That's
Yeah.
absolutely incomparable. This is so interesting, and I don't want to forget about stuff that you have prepared that you would like to talk about. If any one of our listeners is in their own business, or they know somebody that this may be helpful to, Jerry has certain programs that are running right now that include group coaching that can move the needle, and it's an online program called Sustainable Success Through Organizational Health. And I am wondering if that's for somebody who may not be in financial position to hire a consultant and coach directly, like solo one-on-one, because that's the group coaching is usually a little more accessible for even small businesses. Can you talk a little bit about it? What can you offer through it?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for bringing that up, Vera. Yeah, the online program that I created, I created that because everyone deserves to be led well. And I just have that heart for everyone to be able to access it. Okay. So and I know what it's like to be a busy business person. You don't have a whole lot of time.
Yeah.
And so I created these videos that are 5 to 7 minute videos that come 1 week at a time. It comes in a drip. So I call it your weekly supplement to organizational health. And with that, I also provide like in a Zoom format like this, group coaching once a month. So you can come. You've gotten the modules. They'll come with downloadable PDFs. They'll also some fun quizzes, and you're learning something and hopefully applying it. But then you come to the group coaching, and so you have that opportunity to do that. And I make that available at $49 a person per month. So you can have a business, and you've got 10 leaders inside that business that you want to move the emotional intelligence needle forward.
Right.
They're gonna get things. There's five key areas that John Maxwell has found, and I believe him. And 5 key areas if you want to be really good and you want to really grow: communication, leadership, equipping others, your attitude, and your relationships. And so I have modules provided there where you can understand better about communication, and then modules on leadership, equipping, attitude, and relationships. And then this online suite of courses, they're expanding. So I'll have more that I'll be putting in.
But, you just answered my question, because I was thinking, if I'm a business owner, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking how it relates to my business when you don't know anything about my business. And this is something that is generally needed for any leadership in any organization in order to work it smoothly. That's fantastic. Yeah, because it's a very big difference to invite Gary over to your organization and discuss your concrete issues and take a look at the whole picture, or at least educate your leaders so they work on optimal level, because from that level it will pass on your employees as well, and happy customers for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I've got a business health assessment, right? That includes where we look for all of those 9 critical things and how present they are in your business. It includes a employee questionnaire and employee survey that's confidential. And I'm going to tell you what, that one's huge. And you get that when you get the pulse of the organization when you ask the employees I got some key questions that we ask inside this survey, and that'll give you a good read on where your company's at. So I got plenty of
for some leaders.
Yeah, it can be. Hey, one of the greatest things that happened for me. So I'll say one of the greatest things my wife and I did early on in our marriage was have that very candid conversation with one another. Right? It's one of the greatest things that we ever began doing. And one of the greatest things I ever did for myself personally and professionally was I sent out an email to several people that knew me well. And I asked them 4 questions. I said, what's it like to sit across the table from me? What are my strengths? What are my areas for growth? And is there anything else? Wow, you talk about a treasure trove of feedback.
You learn a lot about yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what you're going to hear, and this is how you got to look at it. Even in the areas of what are my areas for growth, and I could have worded it. Gary struggles in the following areas. Fill in the blank. Right? I could have. It doesn't matter what they put. What you're seeing is they're saying to you, "Hey, we'd like some more of this." That's what you're getting. It's absolute treasure trove of information. When you get that employee survey, you're really hearing, we love this, and hey, we'd really like some more of this.
Yeah.
Yes, it's wonderful.
This just reminds me when I have been in sales many years with different companies, and you can always tell a huge difference when the leader actually sits down with the team and hears them, because they are in the field dealing with the customers, or if he comes and start giving directions based on what he came up with at his desk. And there is a huge gap between that and the field. And one of the most successful businesses were always those that considered their sales team their most important soldiers, because that's the team that brings business in. That's the team that brings money in to run the business. And if sales team doesn't function optimally, then who pays, what do we produce? There is no need for products or services, because we don't have the market to sell it to, and we don't have the salespeople to translate that message properly. And it was always a huge difference. It's exactly what you were talking about, to take the pulse of what's actually going on the street, what your salespeople are dealing with, because they are dealing with your customers directly, compared to what the sales manager thinks is a brilliant idea at his desk, to show off that he has something to do. And it's a big difference, because if people listen more to their employees, there will definitely be improvements in places that makes most sense. Not everything makes sense on a paper, but it makes more sense when you talk to people face to face, just in everything else. And that applies to relationships as well.
Yeah. You mentioned sales, and Vera, every conversation is a sales conversation. And here's what I mean. A transaction's taking place.
Yeah.
And they're either buying you or they're not. And they either believe that you are for them, or they believe that you are for yourself, right?
That's right.
Every
People
conversation.
have a very sensitive nose for that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
I think one of the biggest reasons why there's such a stigma about sales, the used car salesman, the insurance agent salesman, because we all had that bad experience with someone. And it's, I have heard so many business people saying, I love my business, but I'm not good in selling. I can't sell. I don't want to be sleazy, slimy, whatever, words they come up with. And I would always ask, well, why would you have to be? You don't have to follow, you sell as sincerely as you feel. Like when I was in sales, I excelled because I was different than everybody else. And there's a lot of ego in sales, and especially when you are in men-dominated markets, which I was. Every salesman thinks that they know better, and they know better than their customer what the customer needs. And there's a lot of talk lately about listening in sales. And I would say, no, asking questions. That's what I meant. And I would say, yes, asking questions, but even more important, what your mindset is coming into that conversation, asking questions. Because if those questions are meant to bring your prospect where you want him to be, they will feel that too. If you come out of sincere position to ask questions to really find out what your client possibly may need, and then you see what from your offer may actually work for them, that's a whole different game. And people feel that you care. And that was my mantra to success, because I started in industries I had nothing, I had no business to be in. I didn't know anything about it. I was completely new to the markets. And I was competing with guys that were in that industry for 40 plus years, having all the knowledge in the world about every detail of the product. And I was beating them at their game because they were so arrogant that they wouldn't listen. And I came from a whole different place. I actually pay attention to how my client's business is ran, what works for him, what makes sense for him, and I would bring them right that. And suddenly I had a reputation that I care about their business, not my bottom line, but their business. And guess what? The bottom line was rising too, because when you have loyal customers that know that you care about their business, it actually works both ways. So if I try push on people what I want to sell, it doesn't last long, and you don't have repeated business. It just brought me back to my sales years, that it makes sense in every aspect of your life that we listen more, and not listen with intention to respond, but actually letting those words sink. I don't know, somebody smart said, and I'm talking too much right now, so I'm the opposite of what this saying says. The more you speak, the more you repeat what you already know, the more you listen, you're learning something new, which is what I just didn't do.
No, Vera, I enjoy, you have a lot of value to bring and a lot to offer. And I certainly enjoy listening to it. Hey, I want to give you and all the listeners something right now that you can use.
Okay.
And this is a way that you can leverage the usage of your emotional intelligence in a positive way, real time, when you're interacting with someone. And I'm going to give it to you in an acronym, and the acronym is NOW, N-O-W. And that acronym represents 3 questions. If you'll have these questions in the front of your mind, when you're talking with someone, you're interacting with them, it will equip you to serve them in such a way and to connect with them in such a way that it increases your influence with them. And you can positively use your emotional intelligence. Here's the 3 questions. What do they need from me right now? So the N is need. What do they need from me right now? Second question, what can I offer them right now? And I'm talking about the solution. Mm-hmm. So the O is offer, and the W is how can I help them win right now? Now, whenever I ask, I'm talking with Vera and I say, what does Vera need from me right now? Then all of a sudden I'm listening deeper to what you're saying. I'm going beyond the words that are spoken. I'm listening to what you're saying. And Vera, it might be that what you need from me is to listen. What does Vera need from me right now? Well, what can I offer Vera right now? Now, I may not have an answer for that, and that's okay. But it's really good to stay in the question. What can I offer Vera right now? And how can I help Vera win right now? And Vera, maybe you share a problem that you're having, and that triggers in my mind someone that may could help you with that problem, and that could help you get that win.
That's right.
Then you know what I want to do right there? I want to introduce you to this person. Right? How can I help Vera win? Yeah. It's a wonderful way of adding value to people. And, I like to share that all of us in our business, it's like a ship that we're trying to set sail. Yeah. If you will value people and add value to them, it will make everything that you bring to the table more valuable. And those people will be the wind in your sail that will set you on your journey. And that wind can come like a gale force wind. It can come all of a sudden and accelerate you in a way that you never dreamed, simply because you value people.
I think that's answered to any questions. Yeah. When you value people, everything works well.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Because I think the middle of every conflict is that the one person on one side of the conflict have the need to be right, have the need to prove the other person wrong, or again, going back to business, having your ego in it so much that you try to push on people what you believe is right for them, without bothering to find out what actually they may need. And that's it's funny. We just met. We briefly spoke once, and we were introduced to each other by somebody that I trust and respect. And we are all trying to make it online, and it's still quite new for me, even though it's a few years. I have been always the best in a relationship with people face to face.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I so enjoy these conversations, because you get to know that person much deeper than when you were just trying to follow them online,
Right.
And I remember when I first started on LinkedIn, and it was a whole new thing for me, because like many others, I was treating it as my job descriptions, my resume actually. And it's like, and a lot of us thought like, well, I'm not looking for a job, why would I be on LinkedIn? Then later on we realized it worked completely different, and today to me it's some of the most valuable tool for networking and meeting people that you actually want to get to know, and may not be your customers, but maybe a person like you that will introduce me somewhere else, or get me new people in my orbit, because usually when you seek, you really get answered, and the right people will appear to you. But I remember how I was really turned off immediately when you, and again, understand, I was in sales, so I understand the thinking, the mindset. When you connect with someone, the first thing they send you is few seconds later a whole list of pitch what they do, and when you read this, first of all, it turns me off, because at least take me for coffee before you make a marriage proposal, And the second, when it's obvious they didn't even bother to look at your profile and find out what actually you do and what may matter to you. When they send you something completely irrelevant, it is obvious that it's either automatic or they send it to everybody and they just pitch. And sorry, that's not the way to create relationships nowhere in life, business, or online. And so I just turn it off. And I think that's the business relationships are changing online as well. And I think COVID made big difference, because a lot of people work from home. Some small businesses just realize it's cheaper to operate from home office, and it's changing the landscape of everything. So don't forget that you are still the business and face of the business and the image of the business when you do anything online, because your customers may be watching you, and it is part of your brand, what you say, how you interact with people, and how you comment on different things. It's still part of the brand, and it could be found about you, how you respond professionally or unprofessionally in that space. I think it's a big difference, because I believe you and we didn't experience this 25 years ago when we were in business. It was a whole different ballgame. Everything changed. Even sales changed. And even more importantly today, I feel like something that you can bring to the table is seriously invaluable, because we don't even see behind horizons because of the daily operations, and we are busy and we don't pay attention to things. This can change a life for you, because not only the people around you will know who you are and what you stand for, and everybody will know where the ship is going, what is important to focus on. Everything makes sense. The health of organization is as important as health of individual. It's actually that makes the whole sense why you are on this podcast today.
Well, I'll tell you, Vera, I've certainly enjoyed being on and talking with you. And you're an absolute delight. I love your mission. I love what you're doing. And our health is something that we got to take seriously. And I appreciate the fact that you're an advocate for that physical health, right? Physical, mental, emotional health that we all need.
And a personal growth is part of it, because many people don't realize until it's too late that they actually have to be in charge of their own health.
Yeah.
It's very similar to business. Don't wait until something is seriously wrong to ask for help of somebody
Yeah.
who can bring that health check for you, do it proactively. There's much easier to be preventive care than putting out the fires that are already burning on multiple places.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. And so I have a last question for you as a Gary White, the person. What is your biggest goal right now, where you are with your mission, with your purpose, with the joy that you get from life and marriage, hopefully, and business and everything you do? What is your next big thing that you would like to achieve?
Wow. Well, there's so many areas of my life that are so important. I can tell you, I shared that out with business owners about regaining lost ground, and I can tell you that certainly in my life, I've lost some ground over the years, and there's some areas of my life that I definitely want to reclaim that lost ground. And what I know is I don't do that. I don't do that without helping a whole lot of people regain what they've lost, regain their lost ground. And so that's kind of in general, what the big thing that I'm after. But I do believe that the dreams that have come to you, um, the books that you've thought of that you have not written, I believe all of that is part of that lost ground that you are to recover and that you are to go reclaim. I believe it rightfully belongs to you because it came to you. I believe those aspirations that you had that might have gotten squashed, some of that water that you think there's too much water going under the bridge, I think you need to go reclaim that. And there's some areas of my life that I'm definitely going to do that. And so that just adds that much more passion into what I want to help business owners do. And because here's what I know. I'm calling them business owners, but they're people. They're people that matter. They're people that have gifts and talents and value to bring, and they're family members, right? And they're part of relationships. And so you can never underestimate the value that one life brings. And if you make that difference in that one life, it's absolutely huge. So I call them business owners, but it's all inclusive of every other part of their life. It's going to make a difference. So that's what I'm after. That might have been a little bit vague, but I just knew we'd be here for quite a while longer if I really dig into it.
No. It makes a lot of sense, and it's really it's to succeed on your mission that you set for yourself to be.
That's right.
And I think this was beautifully said as to finish our podcast with, because I believe as a business owner, you may be the heart of the entire circle. That means your life circle. That means your business, that means your family, your friends, the community, everything.
Yeah.
So if you make that heart running better, everything is elevating with it. And it absolutely changes lives. And this was Gary White for you. I realized I few times called you Jerry. I'm so sorry during the podcast. But
that's my dad's name, so it's all good.
All right, good. It was a pleasure meeting you. I do believe that many people may have gotten some different perspective of what it means to run business, whether small or big, and how it affects every single thing in our lives. Because I always believe that business troubles are personal troubles in disguise. It's all interconnected, just like that vein that the blood runs through our bodies. So it was a pleasure meeting you, Gary, and I hope if anybody feel resonating with Gary, I'll put all his contact information in the show note of episode show notes. And so please feel free to reach out to Gary directly and see what he may be able to do for you, or who he may be able to introduce you to, and how he may be able to help, because that's his mission. And it was really a pleasure to meet you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.